Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the Automated Advantage. In our call this week, we have Lloyd Hawkins, the CEO of Keen Solutions, and he's going to share some interesting anecdotes, some good tips on starting a business, and why he's in business today. Also, don't miss the new segment that's called The Googly, which is a very tricky ball in cricket. And we're going to see if we can get people to give us some fun answers and do some voting later on. So, hope you enjoy this episode and look forward to putting it out there for everybody to see. Well, hey, Lloyd, thanks for joining us today. If you can just maybe start out with telling us a little about who you are, the name of your company, and what business challenges you're solving.
Sure. My name is Lloyd Hawkins, and I am the CEO and founder of Kenai Business Solutions. And this is a company, Greg, that's totally focused on helping executives in four facets of their business life. One, executive advisement. A lot of small growth as SaaS companies and services companies don't really have a senior advisor that can advise them on specific strategies and skills in order to move their company forward. The second one is customer retention and customer success. It's easier to maintain a customer than to get a new customer. We all know that. Third one is partner ecosystems, where you use these ecosystems to as a force multiplier to sell software services for your company and let your partners get a benefit as well. And of course, delivery excellence and optimization is one of my fortes, so I really focus on that as well. And the problems that we're trying to solve is focus specifically on growth software companies that have a PE board that they sit under, or they have some kind of metrics that they have to move forward in, and they're measured on that. And because they're measured on that, either they can gain traction in that aspect, stay stagnant, which is not good, or actually lose traction. So just imagine, if you will, you're a small growth company for software, and you're losing customers left and right, and you're not even measuring it. So you get what you measure, and if you don't measure it, you don't know what you're getting. However, if you do measure it, then you can actually take proactive steps to find out why they're leaving. Is the product not good enough? Is the services not good enough? Is the value not delivered according to what you promised in a sales cycle? And if so, how can you create those and fix those? Secondarily to that, when you have happy customers, what do they become? They become evangelists for your company. So all software sales all revolves around references. So if you have customers, you have retention, you have references, and that's what customer success is really designed to solve for. After the sales cycle, after the implementation, we don't want to say, "Hey, see you later, good luck, you're on your own." We want to continue to foster that relationship, nurture it, and grow it. And not so much just to gain more software revenue, which is always a good thing, but also to make sure you have happy customers. And when you think about partner ecosystems, you can't do it alone. Small growth software companies need help. So let's harness the Accentures, the IBMs, the Deloittes, these services companies, and tier two as well, to help sell software for them. But what's that really entail? You have two customer bases at that time. You have the customer you're trying to sell the software to and the value prop. Then you also have your partner that you need to sell the value prop to them to sell to your customers as well. And it's different. And of course, you got to recruit, hire, and train for those people, and then make sure you measure those results as well. And of course, delivery excellence, Greg, is the secret sauce to all of it. If you don't have delivery excellence, you can't retain and you can't keep your customers happy. So, in a nutshell, that's what me and my company are designed to do.
Oh, that's exciting. And so I know you and I have spoken in the past, so I'm familiar with your background, but maybe for the audience is talk a little bit about your experience at some of these larger consulting firms. And I'm very confident that there's a big you saw something in the market, or you saw something not being delivered, or you saw a behavior and you said, you know what, I can go fix that.
Absolutely. So that's the fundamental question of why Kenai Business Solutions, why Lloyd Hawkins, because I've worked at Accenture as an associate partner, and IBM as an associate partner, and SAP as a vice president of sales and service and delivery. I've held these roles through multiple companies such as Alemica as well, and smaller companies. And what I've noticed is there's a big paradigm between and juxtaposition between Accentures of the worlds and the tier twos. And the tier twos really need help. There are levels to this business, Greg. And what I've been taught at the IBMs and Accentures is how to professionally deliver these results, not the output, not the process, but the actual results for the customer. So one of the biggest problems with small companies is they're homegrown. they start out with Lloyd and Greg, and we know everything. But you often and very quickly outgrow the company outgrows your ability to manage it. However, because it's your baby, you have a hard time bringing on professional help. But when you don't bring on professional help, you also don't bring on professional capital. So you limit your growth. So a lot of companies will get to a certain point and then they can't function anymore because they don't want to grow or their founder will just not let go. And I had a conversation with a guy who was establishing a company 5, 10 years ago, and I said, Bhaskar, what is your ultimate goal of this company? He said, well, I'll keep running it. I said, well, if somebody offered you $25 million for it, would you sell it? He said, no. I said, you're in the wrong business, brother. The ultimate goal of a company is to make money. Social welfare programs, social safety nets are great. Giving back to the community is always a good thing, but it's secondary to making money to fund it. And that's what we forget a lot of in our personal lives or professional lives. So working for IBM and Accenture really taught me how to analyze those problems and how to put solves around those problems so they get the best results.
Yeah, and I mean that's an interesting concept too, because I've been speaking to some of these business owners as well, and I think your point's valid. Is a lot of them start out because they're really good technicians of their whatever it is, and then they get into the business, and then they're not only the accountant, the sales guy, the delivery guy, and all of that, and something suffers in that model. So I think that you and I have been again in this business of helping not only just optimize processes, maybe automate them where they need to be automated, but then do some kind of fractional services seems like a real solid market that people need together. But I think a key, and you can validate my assumptions, is a key component to that is understanding you have a problem. When you look at your point of the guy with $25 million, right? I mean, okay, take the 25 million and start over again. So I mean, there's a lot of
Absolutely.
questions in there, but kind of your perspectives on that model of small entrepreneurial companies trying to take the next step.
Yeah, and I would ask all of them, do you want to be the CEO or you want to be rich? I prefer to be rich. But you also brought up a really good point, Greg, that makes my model and your model so much different. Fractionality of it. You don't want to bring on a hired gun, a high priced guy like Lloyd and put him on a gigantic payroll and maybe not get results. You may not. However, when you have a fractional executive such as myself and you can bring them on for a short period of time, get your results you need, and then they can move on to their next gig and you can move on to success. Knowing that if you ever slip or if you ever need more help, that person is familiar with your business model, familiar with your company, familiar with your personalities, and can step right back in.
Yeah.
And it's more importantly, with these fractional execs, such as you and me, we have a gigantic network. So in the event I'm sitting there as a customer success executive for a 6 month gig, and I see they're struggling with sales and sales management, that's not my skill set. So I would get on my Rolodex, to use an ancient term, and reach out to Greg and ask Greg if he has any insights to this opportunity for the customer.
Yeah, no, and I think that that's definitely if you look at the business model, and I've spoken to a lot of people that are trying to solve the same problem like that. So maybe just moving forward now, as far as your business is concerned, and I know you're in the early stages of it, but looking at customer acquisition and what types of things are you doing to be able to go and evangelize the Lloyd story?
Yeah, so specifically, you need to look at your target audience, right? The total available market is not your target audience. So my target audience will be private equity firms and their portfolio companies because they are measured on results. The small mom and pops that like you said, wanted to solve a problem, want to be technicians, they may or may not move. They may not care. But the portfolio companies of PE firms do care. So how do I market to them? I'd love to use some kind of AI agent and engine to help develop the sales cycle for me. I think that well, your company would be perfect for that. But also the traditional LinkedIn posts, so the outreaches of that nature always helpful. But more importantly, I have a teammate focusing on developing a pipeline of those PE firms by PE firm and then portfolio company and portfolio company by growth software companies. That'll be my target audience, and then I'll outreach them to through obviously emails and things of that nature, uh, and 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 see if I can get traction that way. Additionally, by being on podcasts such as yourself, this will broadcast my message to a lot of people. And then, thirdly, and more importantly, Greg, is the network that you and I have built over decades of doing this type of work. So, can I reach out to someone in another company? Maybe they may need that help, but I guarantee you they'll know who I am and they'll know the message they can pull forward for me.
Yeah, and that's a very good. It's a good model, that, and one of the things that I know we've lived by, because again, you and I've spoken in the past, but that is this: don't burn your bridges, keep your networks alive, be a good human, and all of those things. And you'll be surprised, because I've had a similar thing where you reach out to people and their first question is, how can I help? And a good answer needs to be, you can help me with this, right? So, for example, somebody offered to allow me to use them as a reference to LinkedIn reach out. So I'm like, that's amazing help. So, but it's because you've built the credibility. It's because you've built the relationships. It's because you've done right by these people. So I agree with that. Um, in the sense of the business right now, so be kind of, this will be for people that are starting out businesses and things like that. What's been your experience? What keeps you busy during the day? How's it been in the day in the life of Lloyd in the last couple of weeks?
Very, very exciting. Very exciting. So, just out of full transparency, I'm almost 60 years old. And frankly, Greg, if I had one thing to tell myself as a much older young man, do this earlier. Start early, earlier in age, and well, you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of focus, but you also have a lot less risk. As you get older, you put on the golden handcuffs, and then you're stuck. Luckily, I'm not in that quite a position. I do have some funding to keep me going, so to start my business. So I would say that start early. If you're working for a company, ethically start your side hustle and save money to start your side hustle. Reduce your debt that you can live minimally, because you may have to for the first few months, first year of your business. More importantly, learn from this. I would say, keep your chin up, but more importantly, learn from this, because every experience we go through is a learning opportunity. So whether you're writing a book, you're decide, hey, I want to shoot a little short film, or I want to start my own business. Do it and then learn from it. And if you fail, you still learned. But I
Yeah.
guarantee you, you won't fail every time.
Yeah, no, it's good advice there. And so this is my second foray into doing my own business, and not to, the shortest story possible is I bought a franchise. It was an interesting model, and it was successful. And there's a bunch of different reasons why I ended up getting out of it. But at the end of the day, when I look at those days, there were some difficult and dark days, but I always go back to that and go, you know what, is today worse than that day where I used to go have to knock on somebody's door to see if they wanted their house painted? It's very, very perspective driven, but also lesson learned driven. And there's nothing in there that I was unhappy with, that I'd learned to be successful in life, and take away wins. When I wrote on my resume, I said I had an MBA, and it was basically business owner. That was the reason that I had an MBA. So I agree with that. Um, and then as far as kind of the future, I said, our objectives obviously is getting rich, but what's your what's your, you said close to 60, you and I in the same boat. Same advice for people: start doing it, man. It's
Yeah.
different when you're younger and you have less less things to have to take care of. But it kind of, what's your, these days it's hard to even say what's your 2 3 year vision, because with all this AI stuff you need to have a 30-day vision, right? But like, where do you see yourself?
Yeah. So I see myself being very successful, and success, that term successful is very objective, right, or subjective, excuse me. And I want to have a happy, healthy retirement when I do finally retire. And when I retire, that means when I got one foot in the grave, because the business I want to construct is a business that I can do after 65, right? So that's what I want to get to. But it's more important for me, Greg, is to have a positive impact, right? So when I advise executives or advise my friends or advise colleagues, it's A, I love hearing myself talk, but B, I want them to have a positive impact from that. I want them to have a positive outcome. And that's what really drives me. Frankly, the money will always be there. If you're chasing money, if a person is chasing money, that's, to me, it's the wrong objective. Chase effectiveness, chase value, and the money will always come. And I like what you said earlier, and I'm going to tee off on this a little bit. Is that you said that, hey, your worst days then are better than your best days at a corporation or something of that nature. What I would say, have a sense of perspective, is what you said, and have a deep sense of gratitude, because you and I are so much luckier than 99% of the planet. And I try to. It's hard not to get stuck in the weeds and your head down. Oh my goodness, I can't get to my pipeline list or nobody's calling me back. It could be a lot worse. And for many people, it is a lot worse. And I am so happy. I'm not proud of it because it's not an achievement, but I am so happy to be born in a country where we can actually make these decisions, impacts, and get to keep the reward or the penalty for our decisions. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, no, I think that those are sound words, and that's true too. I, I think good people buy from people, which is an old adage, but good humans work with good humans, and it's evident good humans. And I've had a lot of these conversations in the last month or two, and it's so easy to tell people that come at it with the right attitude, the right intention, knowing that you have something to solve. That to me is the other thing, and maybe you can touch on this too. Is we've always been in this sales slash delivery model. We've been tied to got the benefit of working for big companies, but getting experience and those types of things. There's been a lot of good that came out of working for smaller companies, having different situations. But I think the end of the day, for me, it's always been if I stand in front of a prospect, doesn't matter what it is, I need to be confident that what I am selling, that not that what I'm selling, but that it can be achieved. And to me, in the stuff that I'm doing right now, it's given me freedom and energy to say, I just know it works. So just got to find the people that are looking to do what they do. So maybe you can
Yeah.
elaborate a little on that.
Well, I think you're 100% right. When you say stand up, and I had a conversation literally an hour and a half ago with someone else on this very topic. When you stand up and you can project confidence, it's amazing. But that confidence only comes from another thing: competence. Competence breeds confidence, right? So as you go through life, you pick up these skill sets, and frankly, those experiences are immeasurable. And but when you speak from confidence, but I also like to speak, Greg, from a position of giving. I love giving of myself. I love to make money. Money buys you one thing, freedom. But I do love having it. My wife loves it more than I do. But I also love the impact I have on people. And dude, I as you and I get a little bit longer in the tooth, I talk to some of my friends and people, and they say, "Hey, I can't believe you don't remember this, but you had such an impact on my life." And to me, it was just a minor thing, a little minor detail, an act of kindness, and but it's so impactful. Let me tell you a quick story. I was on a project for a major Southern bank, and I rolled onto it as a project manager. And when I got there, they wanted to roll off one of my subordinates, and he's like, he doesn't have the appearance, he doesn't have the confidence when he speaks. He's very quiet. And I went to the mattresses for him. I said, no, he's one of the best people we have. Let me talk to him about that, why that was. And we kept him. He's very successful. And he told me literally a year ago, Lloyd, you went to bat for me when you had nothing to gain from it. You actually had something to lose from it, and I could, and I that had such an impact on my life. We're lifelong friends now, but I couldn't believe he said that because I didn't think too much about it. So having a a mindset of kindness and giving works wonders not only in your personal life but in your business life as well. People buy from people.
Absolutely, no question about that, and it's that intentionality thing, and it's again, it comes through. I have a similar conversation and a story with a young lady. There was an associate at a large Accenture who came to me and said, "Would you vouch for me?" And I was like, I just I see something there. And to this day, she contacts me on a regular basis saying, my career's taken off. I appreciate what you did. Thank you so much. And it's like, and even coaching soccer in the day. I mean, I haven't coached soccer for 20 years, but I run into kids in the street right now and they say, Coach, thank you for what you did for me and stuff like that. So it feels good. I think we've got the same principles. Um, So maybe there's one little segment I want to do at the end, which I'm adding to my podcast right now. It's not meant to trip anybody up, but it's an unusual question. But before we get there, um, any kind of any sage words? I know we've discussed a lot of things and said, okay, if you've said to people starting out, go and be intentional, go at it and stuff like that. But maybe one or two, just, hey, here, these are non-negotiable entry points to starting a business.
Yeah, that's an outstanding way to phrase it. What are your non-negotiables for starting a business? One is to make sure you have a clear vision of what you're trying to accomplish. Two, make sure you have a clear value proposition. And three, make sure you have clarity of message. Those are your table stakes to be able to communicate to your customers because people are not going to buy anything for no reason. Secondarily, try to have as much capital as you can, try to minimize your expenses, and more importantly than anything, Greg, more importantly than anything, take the risk. Take the risk because I know there's several times in my life, two I can name, but I won't, where I had an opportunity to take a small risk that would have had significant benefits, but I was too risk averse, and frankly, that means I was too scared. I mean, maybe it cost $5,000 to start up 20 years ago. You tell me I couldn't raise $5,000? Yeah, of course I could have, right? But I didn't, and I look back on that with regret. So take the risk because as long as you don't take a life or make a life, you can recover from anything. So that's what I would say.
I think that's again sage advice, and that it you can get back to it. But I mean, we've all been to the conversations a little earlier. We've always been quote unquote the slaves to, hey, we got nice paychecks at those big companies we talked about, and it's hard to step away from that. But at some point in time, if you truly believe, it's time to go. So I'm going to look over here because I want to read something. So I'm trying a new segment. So in baseball, you have a curveball. And now going back to my South African roots, in cricket, there's a ball called a googly. So a googly is a ball that looks normal, but it embarrasses you when it hits the ground and does something that you don't expect. So here comes my googly for you. What is the most ridiculous piece of business advice you've ever received that you actually tried? And I might just preface it by saying people said one guy told me somebody told him to do cold calling from the bathroom. So it sets you up if there's anything that you can share with us, and we'll put it out there.
Wow, that is a very, very hard question because I'm usually the one giving business advice. So, uh, Greg, that's a hard question to answer. Ridiculous advice that I actually implemented. So I'm gonna give you not ridiculous, but how about illuminating, revealing advice? Because I don't have anything that's ridiculous, and frankly, I wouldn't have listened to it anyway. But the most illuminating advice I had came from the guy that I saved from rolling out that project. He said that you can do, one can do anything you want, but what are you willing to give up for it? That's the key. You can do anything. Now, obviously, are there physical restrictions on that? I'm not playing running back for the Eagles. That's not going to happen, right? I'm not bowling for the South African team, trying to trying to throw a googly, right?
Yeah.
So, uh, so there are limits to that, right? But the fact of the matter is, we put these blinders on and it's good for 99% of America, but that's what keeps the wheels turning. But if you can take those blinders off and realize you can do anything you want if you're willing to give up everything, then you could make yourself free. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, it took me that long to realize it. I mean, 60 years to realize that. But again, as if there's any entrepreneurs out there, you'll get so much freedom. And every entrepreneur I talk to, everyone tells me two things: it's scary, and they never not do it. They would always do it again. So, and a third one is they wish they'd done it earlier.
Yeah, no, and I think you said that too. And I mean, I think the other thing for you and I and people that are in a similar situation, right? When we talk about, being married to the job, all of us gave everything we had. And the whole, I mean, I know for me, one of the big things was that road warrior mentality, and it was almost expected, and you just realize how much it's taken out of you. And one of the big refreshing things for me right now is, for example, and this, my son is in the Navy, he's doing his re-enlistment on Thursday. I have no qualms in blocking out my calendar for the entire day, going, you know what, I just need to take the day off. And that to me is, if there's nothing else that's revelationary, I don't know if that's a word, it's things like that where you can also not only be heavily focused on your business, but you take time for yourself and your family. And I think we get to do that without any quote unquote guilt, being able to feel like you're stealing from somebody.
100%. And by the way, congratulations on the reenlistment. That's a huge milestone. You must be so proud,
Very.
and that's incredible to actually give yourself to your country like that. It's incredible. But also, when you're working for the big firms, or even the smaller firms, but when you're working for a company, you're right. You feel guilty about taking time off work. As an entrepreneur, you're working all the time anyway. But even as a corporate employee, you're still at our level working all the time anyway. So why not get the benefit of it?
Yeah.
So I think that's incredible. So again, congratulations, man. I'm so excited.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Well, this was fun. I enjoyed our conversation. I'm happy that we got to do this. We'll publish it for the world to see, and I look forward to connecting again. I will stop the recording.